Let's complete the following project. Learn Java, manipulating variables. Okay, so in the introduction it says, let's say we're writing a program that represents a user's bank account. With variables, we know how to store a balance. We'd use a double, the primitive type that can hold a big decimal number. That can hold big decimal numbers. But how would we deposit and withdraw from the account? Java has a built-in math operations that perform calculations on numeric values. To deposit, so we see some comments. We see some variables being declared and initialized. So this is kind of the logic of a very simple banking app, something along those lines. So we have a balance, we have a variable called deposit amount. So this would represent however much we want to put into our bank account. And then in order to update the balance, of course, we add the initial balance that we had, and to that we add the deposited amount, and we're gonna get the updated balance. Okay. Throughout this lesson, we will learn how to perform math on different data types and compare values. If we have a look at the instructions, it goes like this. In the file guessinggame.java, which is this one, we have defined two integers, mystery1 and mystery2. We will talk about these operators among others in the rest of the lesson. Use the system.out.println to print the variable that holds a value of 2. So I'm going to copy this statement, system.out.println. I'm going to end it with a semicolon. And in the we have defined now, we will talk about these operators. Use this statement to print the variable that holds the value of 2. Well, we're going to print mystery 2 because 8 plus 6 is not going to be 2, and 8 minus 6, that is going to be 2, okay? So I'm going to run this. Okay, we completed the first instruction. We're going to move on to the next lesson. Okay, so we're gonna talk about addition and subtraction when it comes to Java variables. In our bank account example from the last exercise, we used plus to add. So we have a balance, a deposit amount, and then updated balance. And we said balance, which is this one, plus deposit amount, which is this one, and then this, whatever result we're gonna get here, gets stored into the updated balance. Okay. If we wanted to withdraw from the balance, we would use minus. And this is showing us the same thing, only that this time it's withdrawing. So it's using the minus to take out money. Addition and subtraction work with ints as well. So like we saw in the previous example, we had 8 plus 6 or 8 minus 6, something along those lines. And of course, it's going to work on numbers as well. So we have a variable whose name is this one, so num pictures of cats. The data type that variable is going to store is of type int, and we have this operation here. So we're going to have 60 plus 24. This gets evaluated and it's going to be 84. And that number, whichever number this is going to be, is going to get stored in this variable, okay? If you had 60 pictures of cats on your phone and you took 24 more, you could use the above line of code to store 84 in num pictures of cats. Now, if we have a look at the instruction, it says create an int variable called animals in zoo. So int, and this one holds the amount of zebras plus the amount of giraffes at the zoo. So we have this one plus this one. Okay, Then print your animals in the zoo variable. We're gonna use the system.out.print. ln. Okay, and if we run this now, okay, we get 12. Well, of course, I have a little bit of a space here, but it looks like that went still just fine. So we have zebras is zoo, which is 8, plus 4, which is this other one, giraffes. And then we assign this result, we assign it to this variable, and then we print this variable, which is going to hold 12, okay? If we go to the next instruction, it says two of the zebras have been traded to a neighboring rival zoo. Subtract 2 from the number of zebras and store the result in a variable called num zebras after trade. Okay. We're gonna create a variable of type int that is gonna have this name, so num zebras after trade, and this one is gonna store the name of our zebras. Well, not the name, the value that variable holds, -2. And then we want to print, so it says then print the num zebras after trade. Okay, let's use this one, so it saves us up a little bit of typing time. Okay, so we have put the zebras in zoo. If 2 have gone to a different location, now we put the new number into this variable, and then we want to print that variable, yeah? And we have 6, okay? And this is these are the instructions for this exercise. We're gonna move on. Multiplication and division. Let's say that our employer is calculating our paycheck and depositing it in to our bank account. We worked 40 hours last week at a rate of 15.50 an hour. Java can calculate this with the multiplication operator, which is the asterisk. So we have a variable called paycheck amount of type double that holds 40. So this would be the number of hours that we worked times whatever we charge per hour, okay? If we want to see how many hours our total balance represent, we use the division operator, which is a /. So the multiplication is the asterisk and the division is the /. Division has different results with integers. The / operator does integer division, which means that any remainder is lost. So, for example, if we divide 10 by 5, it's good because it divides without any remainder. So that will be 2. So 2 times 5 equals 10 indeed. But for example, if we were to divide 10 by 4, so 10 divided by 4, this is not going to be we will have a remainder from this operation, okay? But because the division operator does integer division, okay, means that the remainder is lost. So instead of getting 2 point something, yeah, we will simply get 2 because that is what this division operation does, okay? Now, if we look at the instructions, it says in main there is a variable called subtotal. So in this exercise, we have a variable called subtotal, which is 30. And this one represents the subtotal of an amount to pay on a bill, and a variable called tax, which represents the amount of tax added to the subtotal. create a double variable, total, so double total, that holds subtotal plus, so holds subtotal plus the product of subtotal and tax. And now, if you remember from school, early age of school, it's not gonna be subtotal plus subtotal and then whatever this is you do times tax. This operation of multiplication is gonna take place first because it has priority when it comes to addition to the plus sign here, okay? And then it says print the total variable. So we're gonna print the total variable. There you go. Number 2 says there were 4 people who bought this meal together and want to split the cost. Create a double variable called per person. So we're gonna create a variable called per person of type double, which holds the total divided by 4. So total divided by 4. Okay, we ended with a semicolon, and print per person variable. So we want to use the system.out.println variable, the system.out.println statement, and give it the per person here in the parentheses in order to print this on the screen. Okay, I'm gonna run it and we get 8.15625. And this is the end of this third sub-lesson of this chapter. Okay, now we're going to talk about modulo. If we baked 10 cookies and gave them out in batches of 3, how many would we have left over after giving out all the full batches we could? The modulo operator gives us the remainder after 2 numbers are divided. So for example, if you have 10 cookies that are baked and then we want to see how many cookies we will have left over, we're gonna say 10 modulo 3, and then that result is gonna be 1 because the result of a modulo holds the remainder of that operation, so the remainder. Okay, if you have 1 cookie left after giving out all the batches of 3, you could, so you have 1 cookie left. Okay, modulo can be a tricky concept, so let's try another example. Imagine we need to know whether a number is even or odd. An even number is divisible by 2. Modulo can help. Dividing an even number by 2 will have a remainder of 0. Dividing an odd number by 2 will have a remainder of 1. So for example, 7 is odd. If we do 7 modulo 2, we get 1 because 7 divided by 2 is going to be 3, remainder 1, yeah? So since modulo only deals with the remainder, then the remainder is 1. If we have 8 modulo 2, the remainder is 0 because 8 is even and 8 divides directly to 2. Okay, there's not going to be any remainder. Okay, we have, like in the top example, we have 9 modulo 2. We're going to have 1 as a remainder, which tells us that 9 is odd. Okay, then if we have a look at the instructions, it says you are trying to split up students into groups of 3. How many students will be left out once the groups are made? create a variable called left out that holds the modulo of students and 3. So we're gonna say int left out, and this one holds the variable students modulo 3. Okay, then print out the variable. So we're gonna use okay, and we're gonna, what happened here? Left out. Oh well, exactly, because look at this, system.out. I misspelled it, print. Okay, let's run it again, and indeed we get 2. And this is this now allows us to move on to the next one, greater than and less than. Okay, now we're withdrawing money from our bank account program, and we want to see if we're withdrawing less money than we have available. Java has a relational operators for numeric data types that make Boolean comparisons. These include less than, which is this one, greater than, which is this one, which helps us solve our withdrawal problem. We have a little example here. So we have a balance, we have amount to withdraw, and then we can compare, is this one bigger than that one, and then it's gonna print whether it's true or false. Okay, you can save the result of a comparison as a boolean, which you learned about in the last lesson, and we did learn indeed. Now, if we have a look at the instructions, it says print the expression that checks if the amount of credits you have earned, is greater than the number of credits you need to graduate. So we need to use the system.out.println, and we need to check credits earned if it's greater than credits to graduate. And it's false. So the credits that we have earned so far are not enough or are not greater than the credits we need to graduate. Then it says create a variable called credits after seminar that holds the amount of credits earned after taking a seminar, which is worth credits of seminar. So this one. What we can do is we can declare a variable type int called credits after seminar, which is the sum of credits earned with the credits of seminar, because we had already some credits, and then we took a seminar which was worth whatever it says here, 8, and now we store the new credits that we have in the variable called credits after seminar. Okay, and then it says print out whether credits to graduate, so credits to graduate, is less than credits after seminar, which would mean that whatever credits we have after seminar are more than the credits to graduate. Okay, and we have a little bit of an error. Let's have a look. Line number 8. So credits to... Oh, exactly. I declare this as an int. But if we have a look at credits earned, it shows this is a double. So therefore, if we have a double, we can't store a double into an int, which forces us to store the result in a double. So there you go. Now we fixed that. This is brilliant that there are small issues along as we go along through the course, because it helps us to troubleshoot and to find the bugs. We're going to move on to the next lesson. Equals and not equals. So how would we validate our paycheck to see if we got paid the right amount? We can use another relational operator to do this, which is equal equal. And this one will tell us if two variables are equal. So we have this variable of type double, we have this other variable of type double as well. And then here on this line we say print out whether this is equal to this, and this will be a Boolean value, okay? Because it's going to make the it's going to calculate whether paycheck amount is the same with the calculated paycheck, okay? And this comparison is going to give us a Boolean value, either true, yes they are the same, or false, no they are not the same, okay? And it says notice that the equality check is two equal signs instead of one, because as we've seen in the beginning of the lesson about variables, the only one equal sign shows assignment. But here we don't have assignment. Here we have two equal signs which check for equality, okay? And it says it's easy to mix these up since so we have to make sure that our code is checked for the right number of equal signs. So we have to make sure that we do put indeed two equal signs if we want to compare two values, okay? If we want to check if two variables are not equal, we can use the exclamation mark followed by an equal sign, okay? So if we have two values, if you want to check if they are not equal, you're going to use one value and then the not equal checkup and then the other value, and this result is going to give us a Boolean value. Yes, they are not equal, or no, they are not equal, okay? So a true or a false. Now, if we look at the instructions, it says you have unearthed two unlabeled albums, record A and record B. To see if these are the same album, you're going to compare the number of songs on each one and the total length of the albums. So first create a variable called same number of songs that stores whether the two albums have the same number of songs. So this is going to be a Boolean because it's going to check, and that the result of that check is going to either be true or false. So same number of songs. So this has to check whether the two albums have the same number of songs. So let's check if length A equals length B. So album length B. Okay. We're gonna run this. Oh, okay, so it wants songs, not the album lengths. Okay. Songs. We're gonna run it again. Fine. And then instruction number 2 says, now create a variable called different length that stores the result of checking whether the two album lengths are not the same. So let's do, different lengths that stores the result of checking whether the two album lengths, so album length A does not equal to album length B. So we're checking for not, so does not equal. And we see 41 does not equal 53. So therefore the result of this here should be true, by the way. And that is that. So this is going to allow us to move on to the next lesson. Greater or less than or equal to. How could we make sure we got paid at least the amount we expected in our paycheck? We could use greater than or equal to, or less than or equal to. So this one or this one, okay? So if we have some variables, we can check whether one is greater than or equal to the other one, or whether one is smaller than or equal to the other one, okay? If we have a look at the instructions, it says you have been trying to complete a 30-day challenge to drink enough water per day, which reminds me I need to grab a hold of my drink as well. And you should do too as well. Create a double variable called total recommended amount. Okay. So this is gonna be a double. Okay, and set it to the product of the recommended water intake. So recommended water intake, which is this one, 8, times, because if we talk about product, then it's times, yeah, it's multiplication. And the amount of days in the challenge, so days in the challenge, okay? And I think I'm gonna make this like so. So I've done my font slightly smaller, so then everything fits in one line. Okay, so if I'm gonna run this, okay, perfect. If we go on to the instruction number 2, it says create a Boolean variable called is challenge complete. And I'm gonna copy the name of this variable and set it to the result of checking your intake, your water intake. So check this. If this is at least as much as the total recommended amount, at least means greater than or equal to. Then print is challenge complete variable. So system.out.println. So the Boolean here on line 8 is challenge complete, is supposed to check whether my water intake, so your water intake, is at least as much, so is greater than or equal to the total recommended amount. We're gonna run this, and we are getting false because our water intake is not at least the total recommended amount. We're gonna move on to the next lesson. Okay, so now we are gonna look at dot equals, and this is a method, okay? And this method has to do with objects, which we mentioned a couple of lessons ago. So talking about objects, okay? So far, we've only been using operations on primitive types. It doesn't matter, it doesn't make much sense to multiply strings or see if one string is less than the other. But what if we had two users logging into a site and we wanted to see if their usernames were the same? With objects, such as strings, we can use the primitive equality operator. To test equality with strings, we use a built-in method called .equals. And we know it's a method because right after its name, it has these parentheses, okay? To use it, we call it on one string by using the dot and pass in the string to compare against in parentheses, okay? So for example, if we have like three persons here, Paul, John, and Paul again, person, it says system.out.print person1. So you give it the first person and then you put the dot operator, you give it this method equals, and then inside of these parentheses you put the person, so the other object that you want this first object to be compared with, okay? And the result of this one is going to be false, because if we have a look at person 1 is Paul. Person 1 equals to person 2, so Paul equals to John. Well, of course not. Therefore, we're going to have a result of false. Now, if we have a look at the next example, we have person 1, which we know is Paul, equals person 3, which we know happens to be, again, a value of Paul. It's going to print true because Paul, so this one, person 1, equals Paul. Okay. If we have a look at the instructions, it says we have 3 lines from a song in song.java file, so this one here. First, print out whether line 1 and line 2 are the same. So we have line 1, so we have line 1, we use the dot operator equals, and in here we compare it against line 2, okay? And it tells us it's false. Well, it's obvious that these are different, okay? Now, instruction number 2 says, now print whether line 2 and line 3 are equal. So we're going to copy the code on line 8 and we're going to replace it with line 2. So we want to check whether line 2 and line 3 are the same. Let's run. So on line number 7, its result is false, and on line number 8, its result is true. Because line 2 and line 3 have the same contents, okay? We're gonna move on to the next lesson. String concatenation. We have covered a lot of built-in functionality in Java throughout this lesson. We've seen the plus, so the addition, the minus, this is the subtraction, the smaller than sign, equal sign, and many other operators. Most of these only work on primitives, but some work on strings too. Let's say we want to print out a variable and we want to describe it as we print it out. For our bank account example, imagine we want to tell the user, your username is so-and-so, okay? So this probably would be the name of the variable, okay? With the value of the variable username displayed. So whatever value will be stored in this variable is going to be printed here. So your username is James. Your username is Alex. Your username is Bob. Okay. The plus operator, which we used for adding numbers together, can be used to concatenate strings. In other words, we can use it to join two strings together. So if we have a username and it's Prince Nelson, and then we want to concatenate, so we want to join up the value that is stored in the username variable, we could do it like so. So we put some string, okay, this is a string because it's in double quotes, whatever we want to put here. Then we use the plus sign, the plus symbol, and then we put the name of the variable. And the name of the variable, of course, is going to be replaced by the actual value that it stores, okay? And this code will print your username is Prince Nelson. You can even use a primitive data type as the second variable to concatenate, and Java will intelligently make it a string first. Okay, so if we have a data type of int, so of type int, and then we have a message, okay, and this message is your balance is, this is a string. If we concatenate the string with an integer, it's going to turn into a string, okay? So here on this line, if we say system.out.println message, which is this one, so concatenating string plus an integer, is going to print out this, which is going to be, overall, is going to be a string. Now, the instruction in this one, it says in our zoo, we have a certain number of animals stored in animals, in the animals variable, of a certain species, stored in species, okay? Use the plus sign to make a new string variable called zoo description. So let's say a string zoo description equals to, that holds, it should hold a string that looks like this. So our zoo has, okay, let's do this. We can use the plus sign, so we know that so far we need to have a plus here, okay, that is gonna replace our animals value, okay, and then we have to also have some species, okay, and we're gonna add them here. And then to add the S at the end, we can do this, okay? So if we're gonna try and have a look at it on a single line, so our zoo has we've put a space here, 12 zebra, because the species is going to be replaced by its actual value, which is zebra, so it has 12 zebras. And by doing this, we've just added the S at the end of zebra, okay? So if I'm going to run this now, okay, we have an error. And of course, we are missing on line 6, we are missing the semicolon. We're going to run again. Oh, we need a space in between them here. Okay, let's do this. Fine, so instruction number 1 is done. And then print out the variable zoo description. So if we're gonna do system.out.println zoo description, our zoo has 12 zebras. Our zoo has 12 because we have 12 here. So animals here is replaced by its actual value. And then we have a space, which is this space in between 12 and zebras. And we have the S and the exclamation mark that comes from here. Okay. We can now move on to the next and final lesson of this video. What's the use of having, so this is the review lesson. What's the use of having variables if you can't do anything with them? We've now seen some ways you can operate on variables and compare them. The possibilities are endless. We covered addition and subtraction using these symbols, so the plus and the minus, multiplication and division using the asterisk and the forward slash, the modulo operator for finding remainders, so this is the modulo operator, the percentage sign, greater than and less than, equal to, which is double equal, and not equal to, which is an exclamation mark and an equal sign. Greater than or equal to, which is a greater than and equal to, and less than or equal to, which is this one. Equals as a method for comparing strings and other objects, and using the plus operator, so the plus sign as we know it, to concatenate strings. Practice some of these concepts here to make sure you have a solid foundation for learning more complicated and exciting Java concepts. Okay, so if we have a look at the first instruction, it said, to review, let's try building some of the bank account functionality we talked about throughout the lesson. First, create a new double variable called updated balance. Updated balance. And store balance with amount to withdraw subtracted from it. So we store balance minus amount to withdraw. Okay, we're gonna end it with a semicolon. Let's run this. Instruction 1 is done. Let's have a look at number 2. Now you've decided to split your balance evenly 3 ways and give it to your 3 best friends. Create a double. We're gonna create a double called amount for each friend that holds your updated balance divided by 3. So updated balance divided by 3. Okay, let's run this. Instruction number 3 says your friends each want to buy a concert ticket with the money you've given them. The tickets cost 250. Create a boolean called can purchase ticket and set it equal to whether or not the amount for each friend is at least enough to purchase a concert ticket. So it's greater than or equal to the is at least enough to purchase a concert ticket, greater than or equal to 250. Okay, because it says that the ticket costs 250. Then use the system.out.print ln, we're gonna end it semicolon, to print if they can purchase ticket. Okay, I'm gonna run this and it says true, they can. Okay, how much money did you give your friends anyways? Use the plus symbol and system.out.print to print out I gave each friend. Okay, so we're gonna end it with a semicolon. We have to make this a string in order to print it. I gave each friend, so plus the amount for each friend. Okay, and then followed by those 3 dots, if that's what they mean, with the value of amount for each friend, which I have just put here. Okay, let's run it. I gave each friend 250.25, and with this we have finished this lesson as well.